Watchstanders were able to make radio contact with the captain, who reported the rudder was fouled with a line and became disabled during his transit back to port, according to the Coast Guard's release. The weather at the time was 6 to 8 foot seas and approximately 30 miles per hour winds, but quickly deteriorating as Milton approached, the release states. The Coast Guard instructed the captain to wear a life jacket and stay with the vessel's emergency position. Watchstanders lost communications at approximately 6:45 p.m. Wednesday evening, the release states. A Coast Guard Air Station Miami helicopter was launched at 5:30 a.m. ET Thursday. The captain was recovered at 1:30 p.m., about 30 miles off Longboat Key, clinging to a cooler and wearing a life vest. He was flown to Tampa General Hospital. "This man survived in a nightmare scenario for even the most experienced mariner," said Lieutenant Sunder Dana Grady, Sector St. Petersburg's Command Center Chief. "To understand the severity of the hurricane conditions, we estimate he experienced approximately 75 to 90 winds, 20 to 25 foot seas, for an extended period of time to include overnight," Grady said. He survived because of a life jacket, his emergency position indicating locator beacon, and the cooler. Over 500 people rescued from flooded apartment complex outside Clearwater evacuation zone, mayor says, from CNN's Emma Tucker. More than 500 people were rescued from an apartment complex in a non-evacuation zone in Clearwater overnight after Milton brought major flooding to the city, its mayor told CNN. Some of those rescued were in chest-deep and neck-deep floodwaters, according to Clearwater Mayor Bruce Rector. First responders were already getting 911 calls after the hurricane made landfall, but the winds were too dangerous for them to respond, the mayor said. They got there as soon as they possibly could to protect their own safety, he told CNN. Rector said the city did a really good job of getting people out of evacuation areas, but stressed the flooded apartment complex was in an area that had not been ordered to evacuate. "These people weren't expecting this, but the rain came down so hard, so fast that it completely flooded this apartment complex," he said. "The next challenge will be finding shelter for the residents who are displaced from the complex," the mayor said. "We feel like we had one major hurricane in two separate events. If you put it all together, it's really, really tough for our entire community," Rector said. May administrator says Floridians will need to request separate relief for each storm. From CNN's Keely Aoga, Floridians will need to apply for separate hurricane relief for each storm they were impacted by, even if they were hit by both Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. Dean Criswell, administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency (FEMA), said Thursday. Due to the state being consecutively hit by multiple storms, Criswell explained the importance of residents specifying the dates and damages they've experienced. "If somebody has had impacts from both Helene as well as Milton, I actually need them to apply for both scenarios, for both of those incidents, because they will be eligible for different funding and additional funding as a result of having double damages," Criswell said at a news conference with Florida Gov. Ron DeSantis. Criswell cautioned residents to be as precise as possible in detailing the damage from each storm. "The caution that I give is making sure that as people are applying for one that they're listing the dates as it relates to that one. 'Cause what we will see some bounce back. And we'll have to get more information if you apply for Milton, but you're listing damages from Helene," she said. Criswell also said that FEMA personnel are on the ground to help residents when applying for aid. Transportation Secretary says many FEMA employees rattled over hurricane misinformation. From CNN staff. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg speaks with CNN on October 10, 2024. CNN. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said many Federal Emergency Management Agency (FEMA) employees are rattled by the misinformation spreading about the federal response, including by former President Donald Trump, as they work to help people affected by two major hurricanes. "When I was at the FEMA headquarters today, I saw extraordinary discipline and teamwork and coordination. We're talking about public servants who have been working around the clock," Buttigieg told CNN's Caitlin Collins. "They have their heads down, they're doing their job, they're pros. But you can tell that many of them are rattled by the level of just online vitriol and straight-out false information. By the way, it's not just a problem because it's hurting somebody's feelings. It is actively making it more difficult for responders to do their job." He added that federal, state, and local officials are working together to bring assets back online, such as to restoring radars, towers, and beacons to allow flights to continue. About half of the airports affected are open or working to reopen, They hope to have the Tampa airport open by tomorrow, he said. More than 100 crews are also conducting inspections across Florida to reopen roads, bridges, and interstate highways, he said. And while there's more work to be done before Port Tampa Bay can fully be reopened, hopefully that will be relatively soon. Because that supplies a lot of the fuel, a lot of the energy that people really across the whole state of Florida count on, he said. The Coast Guard said on Thursday night that Port Tampa had been reopened, but with restrictions on vessel movements. Several ports across Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina have been reopened, but a number remain closed in Florida, including St. Petersburg and Fort Myers. Coast Guard reopens some ports in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. From CNN staff, the Coast Guard has announced the reopening of numerous ports across Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina after Hurricane Milton, saying authorities had assessed each location for safety. The reopened ports are in Florida, Key West, Port Everglades, Port Miami, and the Miami River. In Georgia, Brunswick, Savannah. In South Carolina, Charleston, Georgetown. Port Tampa Bay and Seaport Manatee have also been reopened, but with restrictions on vessel movements. Numerous ports across Florida remain closed, including St. Petersburg, Fort Myers, Port of Palm Beach, Fort Pierce, Port Canaveral, Jacksonville, and Fernandina. Federal, state, and local emergency responders are still assessing the extent of damage to the area, said the Coast Guard in its statement. Nearly 1,000 people have been rescued so far, Florida governor says. From CNN's Jamil Lynch and Aditi Sengel. Volusia Sheriff's Special Ops team members rescue residents after Hurricane Milton flooded the area in South Daytona, Florida, on October 10, 2024. Nadia Zamarodian / Daytona Beach News Journal / USA Today Network / Reuters. Since Hurricane Milton made landfall, 999 individuals and 105 animals have been rescued by urban search and rescue teams and the Florida National Guard, according to Florida Gov. Ron DeSantis. There are 23 urban search and rescue teams comprised of more than 1,600 personnel actively deployed across the state, along with 10 swiftwater teams. The Florida National Guard has activated over 6,500 service members and is expecting approximately 2,500 more from other states for assistance, according to Gov. DeSantis. Coast Guard saved man clinging to cooler 30 miles off Florida coast as Milton approached. From CNN's Sarah Dewberry and Ashley R. Williams. 039, source, CNN. Ahead of Milton's arrival this week, the U.S. Coast Guard twice helped a Florida boater who was found clinging to a cooler in the Gulf waters the second time he was rescued, video shows. On Monday around noon, the captain of a fishing vessel named Captain Dave reported to Coast Guard Sector St. Petersburg watchstanders that he and a crew member were disabled approximately 20 miles off Johns Pass near St. Petersburg, Florida, along the Gulf Coast, according to a USCG news release. A Coast Guard rescue boat crew and a rescue helicopter crew arrived to help the two people, who were airlifted back to Air Station Clearwater in good condition, the release said. The vessel was left adrift and salvage arrangements were to be made, the release states. On Wednesday afternoon, the boat's owner reported to the Coast Guard that the captain went out to make repairs to the boat at around